Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici. Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my channel. My name is Vincenzo, and the channel is Fountain Pen Therapy. I'm continuing in that barrage of orders that I've put through when I got back from vacation. A bunch of Chinese pens that I find all very exciting and extremely promising. You know, over the years and over, I would say, perhaps the last 5 years, I think the Chinese pen manufacturing has improved dramatically, and there's a couple of companies that kind of are spearheaded this new movement, if you will. We're talking about Moonman, now referred to as Majon. There's Jinhao, but you know what? I think I give a lot of credit to the company of Pen BBS. Pen BBS came out with a series of acrylic pens. And at one point, they were coming out with a new pen every week. I remember the pen community was in havoc. We just couldn't finish ordering one, that we were required to order another. And in every model, there were maybe perhaps another 6, 7, 8 different colors and shapes, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think Pen BBS had a lot to do with it. For some reason, Pen BBS is quiet these days. Not much is coming out of their operations now. Whether or not all of these companies really are the same, that's always something that everybody's kind of commented on. There's all kinds of rumors, etc. I haven't done an in-depth study of who these companies are and whether or not they're related in any way, shape, or manner. And in fact, the pen that we're reviewing today, which is a pen from Asvine, I think Asvine is just another one of those companies that has kind of joined Jinhao, Majon, Pen BBS. There's a few pens that I think are really, really nice that Asvine has come up with, and one of them we will be reviewing today, which is the P20 in a purple model. So please stay tuned. I hope you will enjoy this video. I've got some very interesting things and observations about this pen. That's, once again, I hope to entertain you and perhaps even assist you in the event that you're interested in purchasing the pen somewhere in the future. So please stay tuned. We'll go to my overhead camera and we'll commence my detailed review. Okay, so we're back. I'd like to start with their packaging. As some of you may have been able to discern, most of these Chinese companies that we spoke of in the introduction, or at least the sites where you can purchase these pens, offer the option of buying the pen without any packaging whatsoever. So you get it in a plastic envelope, protected, or you'll get it in a box if that's what you wish. Now, I believe this Asvine, I gave the option. I took the option to get it in a box, just because I was curious to see what their packaging was like. To no great surprise, the packaging, although the Asvine brand name is on this outer box, the inner box is very familiar. But let's start with the outer box. Here you have the name, very simple, Asvine Writing Instruments. It's an Asvine piston fountain pen, model P20 with a medium nib. So if we open up, that's essentially the box. There's nothing else to speak of. When you open up the box, you get a plastic interior box, which in my mind is very familiar to what you could see with the Majon pens and that we've seen in the past. There is the pen. Very good looking pen, and we'll take a closer look in a second. We have an instruction manual that I think is fairly good. Gives you various insights on how to work that piston filling, and they also have an instruction for a vacuum filling. So my feeling is that they're using the same instruction manual for various pens, and depending on which one you have, you follow the appropriate instruction. I see it in English on one end, and they talk about a dropper filling. They talk about using cartridge, and how to maintain the fountain pen. So I think this is a serve all sort of an Asvine instruction manual that they can put in and sell and accompany all of their pens with, so that they don't have to make separate manuals for each of their pens. So that's the pen. That's the, I should say, that's the instruction manual. The pen is inserted in this kind of, foam inset that protects the pen very well, because the pen is really stuck in there. So so I think it's well protected in terms of, for transportation purposes. So we can get rid of the box, we can get rid of the manual, and let's take a closer look at this pen. Now, the pen itself. Well, first of all, the outer shell, if you will. Very pretty outer shell. I don't know if you can see that, but it has some very nice chatoyancy. I think the resin may not be as deep and as complex as some of the resins that we've seen in a few of the Moonman pens, and in pens like, for example, the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero pens. But nonetheless, I think that this pen has a very interesting design, a very interesting resin. It is a little bit lighter than other pens, which suggests that perhaps the resin is not as complex as some of the other pens. But in my view, still very, very nice. It reminds me a little bit of the Galaxy models from Pen BBS, if you will, and even Moonman. Okay, except this pen has blue, purple overtones. It has a brown, reddish overtone. The two finials are pointed, as you can see, which reminds me of, or diamond shape, if you will, which reminds me of several other pens, and we will take a look at a comparison in just a few seconds. Here again, the roller, the clip is a roller style, which reminds me of Delta and some of the Italian pens that have adopted that style, including Leonardo Officina. It has a very nice gold band, large band with some inscriptions, designs, a kind of a Greek design there, but there's no brand names whatsoever. You could see that there is an ink window there, so when you see my ink, or now it disappears. So there's an ink window there. There are two bands on the two finials on the outside. As far as the clip is concerned, very functional, and plus, given that little roller mechanism, which I think functions very, very well, you have it. There you have the outer shell. Now, one thing that I was disappointed on, and just give me a few seconds, I'd like to take you on the website to show you where my disappointment with regard to this gold trimming comes from. Okay, we're back with the website. And this is just, the advertisement for this pen. You'll find a similar one in either eBay, I believe, sells it. Amazon may also sell this pen, AliExpress and Etsy. This is Etsy. That's the site that I purchased it from. You see the bands. I was convinced that when I ordered this pen that the gold trimming, especially that band, would have been this matte designed gold, which in my view made this pen extremely attractive. I like that matte gold finish very much, and that's what I believed when I looked at this advertisement I was purchasing. And to my great surprise, when you take a look at the pen itself, the gold trimming is not matte. It's a gold shiny finish. Now, that's fine. Some people in fact would prefer it that way. I just felt that I was a little bit misled by that advertising. I'm not sure I would have ordered this pen had that matte gold finish not been shown in that particular ad that I saw. So that is worth what it's worth, but there you have it. Okay, now in terms of the pen itself, let's examine how many turns for it to open up. It's two, so two full turns, and the pen opens. Here you have the nib. We'll take a look at that nib in a few seconds. It's a medium-sized gold. It's not a dual tone. It's a Asvine branded nib. It's a medium. And as I said, we will take a look at the writing sample in a few seconds just to give you my verdict on that nib. The ink window is there, and this is a piston filler. So by definition, this, you just operate the mechanism, and I don't want to do it because I have ink in there right now, but you operate the mechanism with this. You turn and you suck up your ink back and forth until you fill the pen. I did have some difficulty, fully filling up that chamber there for some reason. Tried it several times, but I've got enough ink there, I suspect, to last me for quite a bit. So there you have that nib, decent size, and that piston filler. In terms of the quality of the resin, it's not the thickest resin I've seen. It is a fairly light pen, but it's still, I think, very, very nice. I think that this purple color especially is probably my favorite when you take a look at the various options you have. Although that light blue and that green appeared to be quite enticing at the outset, I chose the purple. I have so many blues, and I have so many ambers and dark blues and light blues. I figured, let me try to get a purple in there. Well, purple, it's kind of a royal blue purple. We understand each other. Some people might consider this as blue as opposed to purple, but I think the combination of that light pink, brown, make it such that at the end of the day, it comes out, it gives you the feeling that you're looking at a purplish pen. Okay, there you have it. That's the outside and inside of this pen. Okay, now let's do some quick comparisons with other pens, and I'll be right back. Okay, the first thing that I would like to point out is, or at least demonstrate to you, is how this Asvine has come up with a series of pens that I think are really, really nice. The first one is this Asvine, and let me just check this quickly, V126. Very nice in my view. Excellent nib. I've reviewed this before, and hopefully the nib on this new P20 is nice as well. This is I believe this is the P169, a heavier pen, a lot of metal in this, but still very attractive. I chose this pen in this black finish with a black nib. I think very nice combination. And these metal pens are becoming more and more. In fact, we even see some Majon with a similar model becoming more and more popular. This is also a very interesting pen, and we will be reviewing this sometime soon, which is the Asvine P36, and I can compare it to several others. Beautiful ink chamber. I really like the finish, the resin, the demonstrator, and that silverish matte finish on this pen. Just very, very nice. And we'll write with these pens maybe in the writing sample just to give you a demonstration of their nibs and to see whether or not my pen is just an accident or not, and whether it be good or bad. And there you have the subject, or the subject of this review, which is the P20. So that's a comparison when you look at various other Asvine pens. Now let's look at some of the pens that I think this pen resembles, and I try to answer the question, is this a déjà vu or is this an original design? And in order for me to answer that, I'm putting forth before you just a sampling, because there may be others. I think the Narwhal, one of the Narwhal models could also be very similar. But what I try to demonstrate is, first of all, this the two finials, this diamond pointed shape finial, is something that we've seen before. We see it on this Leonardo Officina Italiana. We've seen it on this Majon M800, which some people believe that this is probably the best knockoff of Leonardo's Momento Zero, especially with that Bach nib. Okay, so there you have it. So you can see the finials, very, very similar. And then, of course, you have my the Momento Zero Grande, which is a much larger pen. But again, the finials are the same. This rounded, they all have this roller clip, if you will. And there are some differences with my P20. In fact, the P20 you can see is a bit larger than the other two, or a bit longer, if you will, but much smaller than the Grande. So it finds itself somewhere in between. And I suspect that it's probably closer in terms of size to that Narwhal. I don't have one particular model that resembles these pens as well. So there you have a two interesting size comparison to give you some insight on the size of this pen. Now, this pen, in terms of size, is a very nice size. As you can see, I have large hands, and I do appreciate larger sized pens. I would say it's more on the large side than it is on the medium size. Does this post? And that's one of the questions I asked in my intro. When I put this down, it does. But I don't like how secure it is. And the more you fiddle around trying to post this, the more you run the risk of turning this knob and having the ink spill out. So my view, look folks, I don't like posting pens because for all kinds of reasons, they most of the times they create a disequilibrium in the pen. A lot of times you're scratching the pen by trying to force that in. And when you have a piston filler like that, you got to be very careful, because the moment you start fiddling around with the posting, you may very well have a mess on your hands. So I would not recommend posting this pen. That's my own feeling. So that's the outer shell, the inner shell, two size comparisons. So let's proceed with the writing sample. We're back with the writing sample. First of all, the ink. The ink I've chosen is this Cassia from Rohrer and Klinger. As you can see, I think that this ink is going to just work just fine with this pen. Hopefully, we'll be able to see the colors and to see how it, in my view, it complements the pen. As far as the journal is concerned, well, I have my trusty Wonderland 222 notebook Tomoe River that I've been using for several reviews now in the last few weeks, just to create some consistencies for my viewers so that we don't mix them all up with different types of paper. I may very well go back to switching papers as we go along, but for the time being, I'm doing a series of reviews, and for my own sake, I'm trying to compare. And in order to do so, we need to use I believe the same paper, and I've chosen my favorite, which is the Tomoe River. By the way, I just got a bunch of Tomoe River original paper. They're all very old. Very old. They're old Obenichis, which, from what I understand from last year, still use the old and genuine or original Tomoe River paper. So obviously all their agendas, their journals with dates, 2022 I believe, and they're all stale dated. But I don't care because I will be able to use the paper. And I bought a bunch, so I have a good supply of my favorite paper. There you have it. Now I had started writing the writing sample just because I wanted to see how this ink would perform. So let's continue, if you will, with this nib and see what gives. So this is the Asvine P20 in the purple model. Now I've seen this model where I've heard this model also being called red purple. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of some of this reddish, brownish resin in there. But what I've been able to see is that just the word purple is the reference that I see in the advertising that I consulted for this pen. As far as the nib is concerned, and I gotta tell you, this nib so far is just wonderful. It's a Asvine medium, obviously steel gold plated nib. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. The ink itself, I mean the wetness of this nib is just, I think, exquisite. Sorry about that. I am so sorry. I think that's absolutely rude on my part. I forgot to turn off my phone. But it was my wife, and it looked like it was somewhat of an emergency. So I apologize in advance. I had to take that call. Now, in terms of, let me just continue. In terms of its wetness, look at the gusher that this. My God, it's just very, very nice. In terms of it is smooth, folks. It is very, very wet, and it is very, very constant. No feedback. It says, I think, look at this. It just has no problem keeping up. I think this nib is smooth as butter. Is extremely wet, gusher as we put it, and constant in terms of constant flow. So very, very nice. Asvine, very, very nice. It's I mean, I haven't had the pleasure of writing with such a juicy medium-sized nib for some time, although some of the other pens I've just reviewed, including my Jinhao 9019 and the X159s with that big, juicy number size 8 nib. There's the Winsung 630. That nib was also very, very nice. But, it rivals. This nib rivals with them. And in terms of my pleasure that I get from writing those pens, it rivals as well. Just for the fun of it, let's look at what these other Asvine nibs do for us. As you could see, this pen, I haven't written with this pen in practically over a month, and it's just as juicy, So, this is not an accident. This is with a different ink. And you know what? Just as juicy. Let me take another one, which is this big P169. Once again, I don't know whether or not there's even any ink in here, but here we go. Asvine. I think this is the P169. And here again, the nib is just very, very nice, performing very nice. And what is this? This is the V126. I believe it's still inked, but let's see how this nib performs. Look at that. This is the Asvine V126, again with a medium-sized nib. This P169, I think, is probably a fine nib. Let me just check. Okay, there's no, there's an M. It's a medium. I just find that this P169 is a little thinner and not as thick as the other two, but they're all medium nibs, and all three Asvines here anyway, I have not used in over a month. And look at that, I just picked them out, and I wanted to surprise all of us, and they're just as wet. So these nibs are not an accident. They have, in my view, passed the test. So let's proceed to the next part of the review, which is my rating of this pen. In terms of design, well, there is some déjà vu in this design, and I'm a little bit disappointed in that they fooled me into thinking that the gold trimmings were matte gold, and I don't like being fooled. And in addition, as we can see, there's a lot of copying here. So in terms of the design, I'm not going to give it anything more than 7.5 for the effort. As far as build quality is concerned, that piston filler leaves somewhat to be desired, I think. But as far as the rest of the pen, I think it's built just fine. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 for build quality. As far as the nib is concerned, well, I got to tell you folks, this is a 10 on 10 for me. This is a very juicy, wet, right out of the box. No complaints here. So I got to give it a 10 on 10. As far as value is concerned, let me just check. I believe this pen is now going for not more than $50, but let me just check once again. Yeah, $38 Canadian is what I'm getting from the website, 38 Canadian, so a lot less American, if you will. So there you have it. So in terms of value, I think at $38, I would give it a 9.7 on 10. Okay, go-to pen, absolutely for me, this is a go-to pen just because of the wetness and the smoothness of this nib. So there you have my review. Let me sign it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've entertained, or at the very least informed you on this pen. Another, they're coming at us, you know, and you know, I'm enjoying them all. This for me is pure therapy. So thank you very much for joining me, and please subscribe, and see you soon.